Hello, everyone. How's it going? This is the Bald Needle Nerd coming at you with another wonderful vid. And obviously, you know what this one's going to be. I am cheating a little bit. I am actually recording this part of the video before June 26th. This will get uploaded probably on June 26th, but I'm actually recording this part on June 22nd. I figure we're close enough. If I get any more questions on the original video in between now and then, which I don't think I will include answers to those questions. If you want to watch the original vid where I basically said, hey, want to ask some questions, ask below for my 1,000 subs, or my nearly 1,000 subs, because I don't think I'm going to hit 1,000 subs by then. Basically, it's just going to be a giant Q&A. So, let's go ahead and dive into it. I'm going to go basically, I'm going to answer these questions more or less in order, at least, well, the order it appears on my screen. So I don't know if this is in chronological order, but I'm going to do my best. So, I'm going to start with the venerable Metal Mickey, his question. He is asking me, the two main social networking sites these days are probably YouTube and Facebook. Do you ever see them going the same way as MySpace or Bebo? Well, I'm obviously pretty familiar with MySpace, Mike, but Bebo, don't remember that one at all. But, you know, another one you could throw in there is Friendster, and fuck, there are probably other ones that I just don't remember the name of. Anything is possible, right? But I think YouTube is probably safer than Facebook as far as longevity goes. And the reason I say that is it wouldn't be as tough to replace Facebook as it would YouTube, right? And the reason I say that is I do have a Facebook account, but I almost never ever use it. The only thing I really use it for is Facebook Marketplace, and you know, basically to sell shit. That's all I do with it. I don't engage on Facebook the way most people do. I don't look at people's posts, and I don't give a shit about any of that, right? I just you know, and I know that so, you know, for an old codger like me, I don't give one little fucking shit about Facebook. And I know a lot of teenagers now are starting to eschew Facebook for other platforms like YouTube, Instagram, Snap. I don't do those either. But I know that Facebook is already losing mindshare with the young people. So I think Facebook could definitely eventually go the way of MySpace. I could definitely see that happening to Facebook. YouTube, however, seems more resilient. And I think that's because it's an entirely different type of content. You know, video content like this is a lot different than just pictures and text, right? And I think part of it really is the fact that the reason I don't know if YouTube will be replaced anytime soon is simply because of the expense of creating a site like YouTube. It would cost, you know, server bandwidth, hardware costs, all that stuff would be to start up a site similar to YouTube. Giant startup costs. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, really, to get something comparable to YouTube new up on the internet, right? So the only organizations that could really muster that would, of course, be large corporations. And, you know, since YouTube is so dominant in the online, well, user-submitted online video streaming services, I don't know if anybody's really going to come along to challenge that anytime soon. Yes, there are some sites here and there, but they're nowhere near the scope of YouTube. The only way I think... there is one possibility, right? If YouTube squeezes too hard on the censorship and whatnot, because it is definitely starting to go that direction more and more, and if they, you know, but it's like a frog boiling water, right? Or, I'm sorry, a frog in slowly boiling water. If you slowly turn up the heat, the frog will stay in, right? But I think I could see a point where YouTube does take it too far and people leave the site en masse. and maybe a competitor will pop up. That would be, it's possible. It's possible that YouTube could fall, but I think it is more resilient than Facebook. So anyway, that's basically it for Metal Mickey's question. So next guy who asked a question, MJK0, he asked me several questions. So the first question he asked me was, what are some of my favorite albums of all time? This is going to be a long-winded answer. So let's, grabbed now. These aren't the albums I'm going to show are not necessarily my favorite album by said artist every time. It's not going to be. I just picked these albums out because I think they really represent something I love about the artist. So that out of the way, let's show off one of my favorite albums of all time. We got Accept's Blood of the Nations. Of course, this is the first album of the modern Accept era. It is a fucking masterpiece. I love this beyond belief. Mostly because this was a giant revitalization of a band that was long dead, right? It's absolutely fantastic, and it is absolute classic metal with this wonderful modern sheen, and it sounds completely up to date and completely fresh, yet timeless. Love this thing to death. So, one of my favorite albums of all time. Next one I'm going to show, again, not necessarily my favorite album by this artist, but I'm going to show it anyway. Alice Cooper's The Last Temptation, right? Alice is one of my favorite artists, period. And I love the hell out of this album. I'm not sure if this is, I don't really know what my favorite Alice album is. I'm going to have to maybe eventually do an analysis of his discography. But this is really good. This sounds, if you put this on now, this came out in like, what, 94? 94. So this is 25 years old. Jesus Christ, I'm old. So, this came out in 94, 25 years old. And honestly, you throw this thing on now, it still sounds fresh as as anything. It sounds it's timeless, absolutely fantastic, absolutely at the top of his game when this came out. So, and it ties back to his, it kind of bridges the eras for Alice. Like there's definitely, you can hear influences of his 70s work on here, and it's just awesome, in my opinion. Next one I'm going to show is Alice in Chains' Facelift. Now, I wasn't sure if I should show this or Dirt, right? Because those two are by far my favorite Alice in Chains records, right? It's not really a contest. Why did I choose Facelift? Well, probably because this was one of the earliest, I hate to use the term, grunge records. It was huge, but it still is very metal, for lack of a better term, right? And again, even though this came out in like 1990, it looks like, it still sounds brand new. It's absolutely fantastic. Masterpiece. Next one I'm going to show. Again, I'm not sure if this is my favorite record by this artist. It's definitely one of my favorite records by this artist. Anthrax, Persistence of Time. I know everybody would just show Among the Living and be done with it, which, while Among the Living obviously is a masterpiece, Persistence of Time just has this, what would I say it has? It has this, just this overall cohesiveness and tightness that absolutely blows me away every time I listen to this album. Absolutely love it. Now I'm going to show off a slab of early metal, and that is Black Sabbath's Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. To me, this is, obviously they had already created a heavy metal a few albums back with their self-titled debut, but this is such a definitive early metal album, and it's so fucking good. I mean, just front to back, this is just amazing. Everything about this album is just incredible. Um, Not really anything even comes close to it in the time period for me. So anyway, there you go. Next one I'm going to show off is Skid Row's self-titled debut. And the reason this makes my list, it's not my favorite album by them is actually Slave to the Grind. But the reason this makes the list is when I really started trying to get into music when I was 11 years old, I got this and Poison's Open Up and Say, before I ever heard Metallica or anything like that, right? And I liked this way better than I liked Poison. It wasn't even close. And I still love this album. I can still listen to it, and it still slams today, right? So, moving on. We got Corrosion of Conformity's Wise Blood. This and Deliverance are my two favorite COC albums. That's pretty much when I got into them. This is some really just awesome killer, mid-90s, heavy as fuck, kind of Southern-styled metal. It's absolutely just awesome. I love the shit out of this, right? Now I'm going to show one for Metal Mickey's benefit. It's a fairly new album. Death Angels, The Evil Divide, because I know how much you love New Death Angel. It's your favorite. The reason I love this one so much is I know it's new, and I have another pretty new album on this list too. Is because I think this is just absolutely fantastic. This is probably my favorite post-reunion Death Angel record right here. I absolutely love the shit out of this thing. I just think it's fantastic, and I really do think it will absolutely stand the test of time. Next up is going to be another revival record. We got Exodus's Tempo of the Damned. Yeah, I know, Bonded by Blood, but I thought I'd show this one off instead, just because this album crushes it for me. Absolutely fantastic. Next one I'm going to show off, bam, Fear Factory's Demanufacture. Why are you showing this off? I think this is a total landmark of industrial metal. And it came out at a time when metal was just totally uncool, for lack of a better term. And this was a very heavy statement, and it actually got, a fair amount of success, at least with metalheads, right, at the time. And I think it's still basically sounds like it's timeless. It sounds like a modern masterpiece. It is absolutely wonderful. So there's that. I'm going to show a cliched one now, but I can't help it because it's incredible and it deserves to be on this list. Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction. I don't need to talk about this. Anybody with half a brain could figure out why this is one of my favorite albums of all time. Moving on. I'm finally at halfway point on my favorite albums of all time. Just remember, you asked for this. I'm going to show off Iced Earth's Horror Show. My favorite album by them is probably Burnt Offerings, but I'm showing this one again because I think it really epitomizes the best of Iced Earth. They do all sorts of varied songs on this, and they're all pretty awesome. And Iced Earth is one of those hidden gems, and I think I really wish more people would get into them. There you go. Next one I'm going to show off, not my favorite. This is definitely not my favorite album by this artist, but it was my first exposure to them. Fear of the Dark by Iron Maiden. I think this still stands really tall even now. You listen to it, still sounds great. I love this album, unabashedly. Not my favorite Maiden album, but I love the shit out of this. Okay. Next one I'm going to show is, well, by the standards of this list, well, it's about as new as The Evil Divide. And I think this one will make Metal Mickey actually happy. Judas Priest's Firepower. The more I listen to it, the more I love it. It really shows what a band who's been around forever and a fucking day, who just keeps refining their craft, right? This is just an absolutely amazing album, period. Next one I'm going to show off, next couple I'm going to show off are a little bit cliched, sorry, but, you know, these are absolutely fantastic albums. Creator Coma of Souls. Even though this thing came out in 1990, pretty sure it's 1990, was it? Oh, hell, I can't read I can't read it, but I'm pretty sure 1990. Even though this came out in 1990, it sounds like modern thrash. Like, it doesn't sound like 1990 thrash. It sounds like 2019 thrash to me. This is incredible. A total just balls out masterpiece of creators. Okay. Next one. This one, again, cliched. Sorry. Megadeth's Rust in Peace. I think this might have been my first. It was either this or So Far So Good So What was my first Megadeth album. I'm not sure which one it was. But this is thrash metal perfection. And again, this might... You can easily make an argument that this is the best thrash record of all time. And a very credible argument in favor of that. So it obviously makes the list. Oh boy. Next one. This is possibly my favorite album by this band. It alternates between this and one other one. I, of course, am referring to Ride the Lightning by Metallica. It's between this and Master of Puppets. Master of Puppets I actually heard first, before I ever heard this one. But this has a rawness to it that Puppets doesn't, and slightly more aggression. So, I don't know. And obviously, it's pretty much perfection. It's 80s Metallica. What else do I need to say? Oh, crap. Okay. Whew, boy. Next one I'm going to show off. 9 Inch Nails. Downward Spiral. Again, this was one of the few things that was actually really popular at the time that I instantly latched onto. Again, you know, that industrial sound. If it's done right, it can really elevate the music. You know, it can be done very badly, but I think Trent Reznor generally does it extremely well and elevates the music to another level. So, and I think this was an absolute watershed masterpiece of 90s music. Okay. Moving on. This will make you happy, Ron, if you're watching this. Overkill. Years of Decay. What can I say about this? Right? Holy crap. This is, again, you could make it, again, you know what I said about Rust in Peace? Somebody could probably say the same thing about this album, too. Absolute masterpiece. Just words escape me on this one. Okay. How many more of these do I got to go through? Oh, I'm getting down here. Okay. Next one is Nevermore, Dreaming Neon Black. If you're not familiar with Nevermore, shame on you. Everybody who likes metal. If you don't like metal, then you can skip them. But if you like metal and you don't like Nevermore, what the hell's wrong with you? They are, or were, more accurately, a very progressive, extremely heavy band. Just, oh my god, just perfection on a platter, in my opinion. And this came out, I was in college, I think, when this came out. I think it came out in like 98. Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting really bad with my years here. And it just came at a time in my life when I really needed to hear this. And it is, again, a total Masterpiece. Next one. I would consider this somewhat... This doesn't count totally as a renewal album, but I'll call it one. But they took a long hiatus after this. Testaments to the Gathering, right? Now, is this my favorite Testament record? Some days yeah, sometimes no, you know. It's extremely heavy, just a total fucking ripping masterpiece, right? And I loved the hell out of this when it came out, and I still love the hell out of it even now. Okay, good. We're getting down to the last couple here. So, next one is Monster Magnus Power Trip. Again, this came out in, what was this, the late 90s, I think? I don't know. I can't read the damn copyright date on these things. It's so small. Oh, 1998. Okay, so this is just basically an awesome slab of hard rock at just the right time. Just so fucking meaty. Their song has just such meat on the bone. Awesome hard rock. Anybody who's a rock fan, fucking check out Monster Magnet. You know, and this is a great starting point. Power Trip, I would say, is a absolutely fantastic starting point for anybody new to the band. Check this album out if you haven't heard it. Okay. Next one I'm gonna show up is you know, this is gonna tie into one of your later questions, MJK. So, System of a Down's self-titled album. I remember when this came out, you know, and it was brand new. When I heard this, I was like, wow, this... I thought it was absolutely a truly revolutionary and amazing sound. I had not really heard any band ever sound like that before, and I loved it. I still love it now. So there you go. And I'm going to show two more albums. I have to stand up to grab one here. Sorry. Because I am eventually going to do... Whenever the hell I get around to listen to a couple more albums, I'm going to do a total discography breakdown. But I have to show this off. We got Slayer's South of Heaven. What can I say about it? It's a masterpiece. And probably, you know, is it my favorite Slayer album? Well, you'll have to watch the breakdown to figure that out. So, the final album I'm going to show off is one that has, again, I've talked about this in a lot of videos, a lot of personal significance for me because it's the first album I ever owned. I got it when I was a little kid on vinyl, and that is Michael Jackson's Thriller. Everybody knows this album, literally, so I don't need to really talk about it, but I got it when I was like, you know, 4 or 5 years old, thought it was amazing, still think it's amazing. There you go. So, we finally got through that. That sucked up a bunch of time. Okay, so the next question is, did I watch the Game of Thrones finale? No, I didn't. I've never made it through Game of Thrones. I think I watched the first episode of Season 1, and I think that's it, because I've just had so much, you know, so much shit as far as... so much shit to watch. I've never gotten around to watching Game of Thrones. I know, I hear it's really great, but I've never gotten around to watching it. So, third question: rank the big four, best to worst, and do I agree with who's in the big four? Okay, so best to worst. Who is my favorite big four band? Oh, that's a tough one. This is going to be, you know, by hairs, right? Because I love all four of the big four bands quite a bit. I could give the cliched answer and say Metallica's the best because they were, obviously, as I've talked about this at length, the first real metal band that I got into, and they are responsible basically for me being the metalhead that I am. So I could say Metallica is, quote, the best. And there are some days I think that, right? Some days. But there's a lot of days I think Megadeth's the best. So as far as who I think the best is, I'm going to have to give it a tie. Honestly, I know it's a cliche. I'm going to say Metallica / Megadeth are the best of the big four. And I can say that pretty confidently, right? They both have a lot of really amazing work. Megadeth has some mediocre work for sure, and a few turds. Same thing with Metallica. So, I would say those two are, quote, my personal favorites and, quote, the best. Is now, who would I put in the number 3 spot? Would I put Anthrax or Slayer in number 3? I'm going to have to put Anthrax slightly above, again, this is by hair, slightly above Slayer. And the reason I say that is Anthrax has more recently produced really good material than Slayer has. After God Hates Us All, that's the last good Slayer album. Every album they've produced since then, and I will talk about this in my Slayer review, I find to be really completely forgettable for the most part. So I think Slayer, the last good album they put out was in 2001. Anthrax has put out good shit way more recently than 2001. Hell, their most recent album was fucking awesome. So I guess Anthrax would be number 3 and Slayer would be number 4. And do I think Overkill or Testament should be in there instead of another band? Like, I think it should be like the Big 10, maybe. I definitely think Overkill and Testament would make it into that round, as well as Creator and Exodus and other bands. So it's hard for me to say. I can't sit here and say we should remove one and insert another band. I would just expand it to be the Big 10, but that's just me. So now, question number 4 that you're asking me. What are my thoughts or opinions on the paranormal, and have I experienced anything paranormal myself? Well, my thoughts on the paranormal are, I don't really know what the fuck to think about the paranormal, right? It's a very interesting concept. I don't have a strong belief in it, that's for sure, because there's no real evidence for it. Now, that being said, have I ever had an experience? I have had 2 experiences in my life that one is completely inexplicable, and the other one is explicable by a scientific basis, right? The inexplicable one I had is a long time ago when I lived in my first house, okay? The first house I live in a ranch-style house right now, which basically has a basement and a first floor. My first house that I owned was a traditional 2-story. It had no basement, but it had a first and second floor. I was on the second floor, and my wife was on the first floor. So she wasn't even on the same floor that I was on. I was in a room by myself with the door closed. And it was nighttime, so to add a little bit of creepiness, right? And at the door, I heard. I assumed it was my wife, my ex-wife, actually, maybe playing a trick on me or something. So I opened the door. Nobody's in the fucking hallway. Nobody, I didn't hear her, like, run down the stairs or anything. So there was no audible noise that it was her, right? And I go downstairs and I was like, were you just upstairs? And she's like, no, I wasn't upstairs. It's like, well, I just heard a knock at the door of the room I was in. That's pretty fucked up. So I was not under the influence of anything. No drugs, no alcohol, no nothing. I was completely stone cold sober. And I was fully awake. It was like maybe, I don't know, 8:30, 9 o'clock on a Friday or Saturday night, something like that. So it wasn't particularly late, and I wasn't under the influence of anything. And it only happened once. Freaked me the absolute fuck out. Again, I can't explain that one. The other thing, unless it was some sort of hallucination, but I don't know. I wasn't under really any condition to hallucinate. I've never really had any hallucinations. So the other time that this happened was I woke up. Sometimes you know how it is when you're sleeping. You'll wake up in the middle of the night. You'll look around the room just to look around, and then you'll go right back to sleep. Well, one night I did that, and I thought I saw a ghost, right? And the ghost was a Native American looking type of ghost. And when I saw it, at first, it took me a couple of seconds to realize what I was seeing. And as soon as I realized what I was seeing, I started to scream, right? It took a few, I was like, and then eventually I started yelling, and then, and then the ghost appeared to look at me confused as to what I was yelling about. Like, what are you yelling about? And it'll look like, oh, you must be yelling about me. And then I felt this warmth radiate towards me from the ghost. And then what happened is the ghost kind of shimmered up into a ball, shot across me and into the next apartment, because I lived this is before I had my first house. I lived in an apartment at the time. And that was it. The end. Now, that one, it's potential that I was in some sort of, there is a scientific explanation for this. Sleep paralysis or whatever. So, or some sort of hallucination. So it's possible I was in some sort of semi-conscious state and hallucinated that. So I'm not saying that totally is a real experience that I had. I acknowledge that, a more rational explanation is that was some sort of a hallucination. So there you go. Next next question you're asking me is favorite color. I have three. Red, blue, and black. Those are my three favorite colors. How did you feel about question number 6. How did you feel about nu metal when it came out, and how do I feel about it now? Any nu metal albums or bands you enjoy? I was largely ambivalent towards a lot of it when it came out. I hated the super popular stuff. Like Limp Bizkit is an abomination that never should have existed. Absolutely terrible. I still hate it now. And things of that ilk, like the rap, the total rap metal stuff, never liked that. Still don't. Still hate it. But stuff like System of a Down, loved it. Disturbed, The Sickness. I love that album, actually. I have it. I absolutely love Disturbed, The Sickness. Now, the fact that they never really evolved and did much musically is kind of, they're a very repetitive band, but I really love The Sickness. I love Drowning Pool's Sinner album. Everything they did after that, in my opinion, was crap. So I have mixed feelings on nu metal. Some of it I really like, some of it I hate. So there you go. And your final question, am I a smoker and do I drink much? No, I am not a smoker. So, no. And do I drink much? Not usually, no. Sometimes I will absolutely get hammered. That is most definitely happened. But I will often go 6 months without having even a single beer. Hell, sometimes I go a year or two without drinking. So I am not a habitual drinker, but I do occasionally drink, but I can go extremely long periods without drinking. So there you go. All right, let's see what we got here. Who's the next? Okay, I got a great shout out from Corey at Just Add Vinyl. Thank you for the shout out, Corey. Okay, so let's see. Okay, Dreaming Life doesn't really have he doesn't have a question, but I'm going to read his comment because I really liked what he said. I really like your channel and thank you for the shout out. Believe it or not, I view your channel as exactly the type of future YouTubers will be looking for more as the platform evolves. One of my favorite things about it is the real connection people can have as viewers and content providers and sharing information and experiences. Yeah, I do have a very personal channel with a lot of people, and I think the reason for that is my channel is still really small. You know, I haven't even hit 1,000 subs yet, and the other issue is you know, a lot of my vids don't even get 100 views, right? So when not even like 10% of my subscribers necessarily watch it or comment on my videos, it's easy to develop relationships with certain people. When you have a select group of people commenting, you can make friends, and it is a lot of fun, and it's greatly appreciated. And that is honestly the biggest thing that's kept me going through this whole process. So, next one. Got the awesome Dan Powers asking me a question. He is asking me, let's see, was he the one who asking me about sports? Okay. Okay, he's just giving me a shout out. Okay, somebody else asked me if I like sports. I will answer that question somewhere. Okay, so Brendan Van D gave me a nice shout out. Thank you, sir. Okay. Oh, that was Dan Powers. He left me two comments. He did ask me about sports. I'll get to you, Dan. Don't worry. Just give me a second. Darcy, awesome Darcy, 6 Strings 9 Life, left me a comment asking me, do I travel? Unfortunately, not much. Mostly due to limited funds and time. You know, hopefully that will change for me over the next 10 years or so. That's one of my goals, is to travel more. It really just depends on how my life unfolds, whether I'm able to meet that goal or not. What country or countries would I like to visit and why? Well, believe it or not, Darcy, Canada's on the list. I know, even though you're in it. I would definitely like to see Canada. Largely, the main reason I want to see Canada is I know there's a lot of natural beauty up there, and I'm a great admirer of the outdoors, and I would definitely like to see some of the stuff up there that you have in your wonderful country. Of course, I would like to also hit Europe for obvious reasons. You know, the culture goes back quite a long time in Europe. And it would be very interesting to see it. It would be interesting to visit Deutschland, which is the land of my forebears. You know, I think that would be cool, especially to like experience some of the food and whatnot over in Europe that we don't have here. I would also like to visit Asia. You know, probably specifically Japan and China. I think that would be for the same reason. Old culture, try the food out, you know, those kind of places. So there you go. Stupid Car left me an awesome chat out. Thank you, sir. Okay, cool. Now, Dan Powers asking me if I'm in any sports and do I follow any sports teams. Well, I'm going to answer that question for you, Dan. I do not follow any sports teams. Mostly because I don't really ever watch any team sports. I don't watch baseball, football, basketball, soccer, tennis, you know, any of that stuff. I'm not particularly interested in watching it. It doesn't hold any real interest for me at all. So no, I don't follow any teams like that. Now, sports. I consider my favorite sport to watch is boxing. Why? Well, it's a lot of fun watching two guys beat the shit out of each other, right? Like, it's fun. You know, that is. I don't go out of my way to watch boxing, but if I have to watch a sport, it's going to be boxing. I would say MMA as well, but the problem with MMA is it just always devolves into like grappling, and that's not, to me, it's just more fun watching guys just punch the shit out of each other. That's just me. So you're asking where I live. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. I live in Southeast Indiana, basically right next to Cincinnati, Ohio. That is where I am. I've been in the Cincinnati area all my life. 3 states all meet at the same place: Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. That is the Cincinnati metro area. That's where I am. So, okay. What else we got? Okay, we got Kitten Care. Thank you for your awesome shout out, sir. All right. Okay, and here we go. My good buddy, my longtime viewer, one of my favorite YouTubers here, Chris over at Dixieland Farms. He's asking if we're going to get a confirmation of my name. I have my suspicions. Well, Chris, you probably can guess my name. I'm not going to say it. Mostly because I have, I say some controversial things on this channel, and so I don't really throw my real name in here too often. So there is somebody who absolutely knows my real name on this channel, but I'm not going to say who that is. I guess I can, let's see, can I give you a clue without giving it away? Sure, I guess. My legal first initial would be W. There you go. That's about all you're gonna get. So obviously, my name is Walla Walla Bing Bang. So another question he has for me: do I miss Two Turtle? For those of you who don't know, Two Turtle is a guy who talked a lot about audio gear on YouTube, and he has an extremely unique take on it. Yeah, I miss him. Absolutely. I really enjoyed his videos. I really enjoyed his points of view. It's a shame that he went away, but that happens on YouTube all the time. So, but yeah, I definitely miss him. And one more. What's your favorite piece of audio gear? Oh, that's a tough one. I don't know if I have one particular favorite piece of audio gear. I guess if I have to go with just one, because I have several, I guess I'll go with probably the Monoprice 8323 headphones. And the reason I'm going to say that is they're really cheap. You can get them for like $13, right? Now, to turn them into truly great headphones, you have to actually buy pads that cost more than the headphones do. But if you get the Monoprice 8323s and you get the Brainwaves HM5 pads to go with it, you create an incredible powerhouse of headphones for like $50. The sound you get out of them is so ridiculously good. I just can't believe how great they sound. So it's mostly because they're so inexpensive and they're so good. Now, I have things that obviously sound better than that, but they cost significantly more money, so they don't win the spot. So the cheapness and the quality kind of come together to form my favorite piece of audio gear. So, now, the final question I'm going to answer, at least for now, unless somebody else throws something else up on this video in the next couple of days, is going to be Mr. Andy Cloudy Milder. He's going to ask me about how I basically asking me about how I catalog my music collection and how in-depth and anal I get on it. So I'm actually going to cut away to an on-screen video where I show you exactly how I catalog and how anal I am about my music. So, transition. Okay, so this is going to directly answer Andy Cloudy Milder's question asked me about how I catalog music when I get it in. This is going to take a little bit of time, so if you guys want to jump off now, if you're not interested in this, feel free, because I'm probably not going to talk about much else in this video. After this, I'll probably just do the sign-off. So anyway, what I do when I get a new album, essentially, is I try just to listen to it first, right? Uh, you know, which is great when, you know, you always want to listen to what you have at least once, right? So I have a lovely Excel spreadsheet that I've created to catalog my music. And as you can see, I've got several, rows or columns here where we have different information. First column is obviously artist. Then we've got the album, the name of the album, obviously. I go with original year of release of the album. I don't care if it's a remaster, reissue, or whatever. I put down, whatever year that the album first came out. So, for example, I have like a 2016 vinyl edition of Appetite for Destruction, right? But I'm not going to put 2016 for Appetite for Destruction because it came out in 1987, right? And then obviously I got my genre here. And as you can see, it can slightly get fucked up because here for Iron Maiden, it says new metal. Obviously, that's not the case. So we'll fix that real quick. Then I have the dynamic range rating for the album. This is not what I think of the album or what it's worth. It's simply the dynamic range. What dynamic range is, loudest to softest in the music. Basically, the higher the dynamic range is, the better. And as you can see on older albums here, we got dynamic ranges of like 10, 11, 10. But on like newer albums, you get like 6, 7, or remasters. Let's find an older album. But before I talk too much about dynamic range, we'll talk about, this is where the column that I had called my rating is just where I rate the album on basically a 1 through 100 scale. These are albums I've actually, taken the time to listen to and, assign it some sort of a numerical value based on how good I think the album is. And then eBay Value 2019. I did this actually before I did Discogs, right? I would just look up the album, figure out what the crap was selling for. Now, I include shipping in the value, right? Because it's not free. So, this is priced with shipping, basically. The eBay Value of 2019, what copies of that album in that format were basically listing and selling for. So, there you go. And I will talk more at length in a future video about Discogs versus eBay. But this was pre me getting into Discogs, which is actually part 2 of this. I'll show you my Discogs process next. So this is just for me, my personal thing that I do to categorize it. And as far as how I have the stuff on my shelf, it's simply alphabetical order. Alphabetical / chronological order. Like, I'll put like, AC/DC first, right? Because they're one of the early on in the alphabet. But, it'll be AC/DC on like a shelf first, but like, chronological order, you'll have their oldest albums, the newest albums. That's how I do it for every artist. That's basically how I have it on the shelf. This is how I categorize it. And the way I find out the dynamic range value is I just go to a website and call. So I hit this website called the Dynamic Range Database, where you can look up the dynamic range of any given album. So, let's say I got a copy of, I don't know, we'll go with, you can see some stuff that I put in here recently. So we'll say I just got a, we'll say Overkill. I have this album already, but let's pretend I don't. The Wings of War, right? Actually, I may have created, so I'll do this. I type this in. And there it is, right? You just type the artist and the album in, and boom, it pops up. And it tells you what basically the average for the album is. So it looks like the average for Overkill's The Wings of War is 6. So, you know, there you go. So let's pretend I don't have that album. So I'll scroll down to Overkill, and I'll show you my process for adding that. So let's go ahead and just, you know, let's do it. You know. And then I would just create a new row, right? Put in the artist, put in the album, year it was released, genre, and the dynamic range, for it. Save the, and eventually I would put in, give it a review, like my own personal rating of it, and the eBay value, maybe not. I don't know if I'm going to continue to do that or not. Really depends. So this is basically part 1 of how I catalog my music. You're about to see part 2, which is, of course, what I do with Discogs. So see you in a second. Transition. This is going to be, I actually do 2 things because, yes, Andy, I am pretty anal retentive about this, and you'll figure out just what I'm doing. Now, the Discogs thing, I actually literally just started doing Discogs a few days ago. I know I'm way behind the fucking curve on that, but, I don't know why. I just figured Discogs would be a cool thing to try out, and according to this, so far, I've been uploading information for about 2 days now. The high end, my collection is worth $5,000. Approximately, and on the low end is worth approximately $1,200. Medium is $2,800. At least what I've added so far. I've added almost everything. Not quite there yet, but I've got the vast majority. So the way I add to Discogs, thank God, most things have a barcode on them, right? And I figured I'd add this one first, just for you, Metal Mickey, because I know how much you love 70s Judas Priest. I know it's your favorite, so we're going to add this one first. And the way I typically do things with a barcode, I do it pretty easily. I do that with, just pulling up the app on my phone here. Obviously, we've got a Discogs app, right? And you just hit the little search here, and then there's a little symbol there that you hit, and it'll look for a barcode. So let's look for that barcode, shall we? And then it's really hard to do this, a camera into a camera. Come on, scan. Scan it. Come on, baby. There we go. It locates it. And then you just hit this. Add a collection. Boom! There you go. That's your Discogs. Pretty sweet, right? Now, of course, not everything has a barcode. So we have this rather classic record here, which there is no barcode to be found on it. So I'm sure anybody who has a Discog account knows about this, but okay, it looks like we got LP, compilation, and is this it? That same lettering. That's a somewhat different color, so I probably have a somewhat different version knowing my luck. So let's see if I can find any identifying numbers on this thing. Okay, let's... Oh, it's this one here. HS... See, because I found the catalog number here. HS11342, so I'll just click there. This is the one I actually have. Yep, that looks like it. Right letters and everything. I'll hit add to collection. Boom! There you go. So that's step one. I'm going to show you guys next the spreadsheet I have with my collection information on it. So be back in a second. Well, guys, here we are at the end of my 1,000 subs extravaganza, as it were. And I obviously answered a whole bunch of questions. I really hope you enjoyed hearing your questions answered. I hope you enjoyed the rather lengthy segment about what I do about new music added to my collection. I had a lot of fun making this video. Actually, I'm recording this one day late. I originally said June 25th, but today's actually June 26th. So shame on me for getting a day late. Obviously, you guys know I'm going through a pretty rough patch right now. Hopefully that will change soon. I may or may not make an update video this week about it, but that's a totally separate thing from this 1,000 sub thing. So, lastly, Mr. Finglish, we had talked about doing a collab, maybe on the 1,000 sub video. If you want to do something, man, just let me know. If not, whatever, no big deal. Take as much time as you need. So, anyway, again, I just want to give a giant thank you to all of my subscribers, to everyone who watches my videos, to everyone, obviously, who comments, because without you, I would never have made it this far. I would have, if I didn't have the great interactions I have with people, I would have quit YouTube years and years and years ago. So thank you so much. You guys are the only reason I'm still doing this, and thanks for making it fun. So that's pretty much all it is. Give my old sign off. If you like this crap, thumbs up. If you don't, thumbs down. Share. You're probably already subscribed, but if not, go ahead. So, all that fun stuff. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you guys next time. Live long and prosper.